Hello everyone, this is Dr. Smith and this is LP2 Student Retention. Your quiz is in the notes part, so let's just take a quick look at why retention matters. Well, retention is probably more important in higher education today than ever before. In fact, I can remember when I was a beginning faculty member, and this was in the 1990s, and really it didn't matter. We weren't focusing on retention. It was a much different day then. Back then it was more challenging, I suppose, to get into school. It was mostly non-traditional, no, it was mostly traditional students, 18-year-old students. If they just didn't cut it, in fact, we expected most of the freshmen to drop out and not show up for their sophomore year. So there, as far as I knew, as a faculty member, um, retention wasn't something we really focused on a lot 20 years ago. But today it is vitally important. And it may be because of the makeup of the demographic, um, and it may be that there's just more competition now today for that student. Um, what's really interesting is in 1995, only 18% of America's 18-year-olds were graduating from college and then going on and graduating from high school and then going on to graduate from college. And that's changing a bit today. The fact is that 60% of students entering four-year colleges in America today are graduating within 6 years, and that's up tremendously. That's up from 18%. And you can see that our retention efforts have, I think, made a big improvement in this. Um, However, we still see that minority students and students that are economically disadvantaged have especially difficult times in getting to graduation. So some of the questions and ideas that we're going to talk about, or listen to in this seminar is, do you think that institutions have a responsibility to promote and support student learning? And what does that mean? What is involved in this promotion and support mechanism of student learning? And should we shift from the concept of just teaching to the concept of learning and to the concept of students actually mastering competencies? And if we do, what does that mean to the faculty member? And how can we help our faculty members move in that direction? It's been shown that faculty members can take the lead in innovating and researching and implementing new strategies that demonstrate student retention. And, you know, in the past, as I said, faculty members weren't really involved in this, but we're seeing today, or I'm seeing today, where more and more faculty members are really on the forefront of this issue. Well, so why does retention matter? Well, you have to you have to understand that we're not just we're just not teaching subjects, we're teaching students. And students matter. And retention matters because it helps our students make their dreams come true. And you know, I'm particularly uh, impressed with the students today who are um, going to school online, because all of them are working adults, they have families, they have careers, and they take the time to come back to school with so many other pressures and stresses on them to come back and go to school, because we all believe, they believe, and so do the faculty, I'm sure, believe that a college education will help improve their lives, will help them get a better job, will help them improve the financial stability of their families. So really, what you're doing as a faculty member is making dreams come true. You know, if you take the time to listen to the students who come through school, especially at NAU, and you take the time to listen to them, you'll see that they really do have specific personal and professional needs. And you'll see this in the discussion questions. You'll see this where they'll say, I'm looking at this issue as it relates to quality in education or quality in business or quality in the nursing field. You'll see where they're taking their personal experiences and they're discussing or answering these discussion questions based on their specific personal and professional needs, which is exactly how adults learn. Adults learn by not through revelation where something was revealed to me. Few people learn like that, but where they take something that they know and they attach that new knowledge to it, and then they are able to transfer that knowledge and expand that knowledge base. So the environment established by an instructor really determines what happens when student expectations meet the reality of the classroom. Now, we just had our first assignment that was turned in, and I'll be honest with you. There, maybe not in this class, but I teach another class as well. There were people who were not able to make the deadline, and we could, as instructors, just say, well, I'm just going to take off points and that's how it goes. But I always like to, with the first assignment, to talk to them, and everybody deserves someone to understand at least once. Now, if it's a chronic situation where they can never get their homework in, and believe me, a couple of years ago, there was a student, honestly, who turned in every assignment on the very last day of class and expected to be graded and get an A for that class, and so for the entire course did not turn in one thing. And then on the last day, now that's unfair to him, the other students in the class, and to that faculty member who has a short deadline to grade those papers and get in that grade. That should not have happened. In fact, I think part of the reasons for participation today and other things are because students took advantage of situations such as that. But seriously, instructors need to show a little concern, a little empathy, and some caring to their students because it's hard to do this, and people are trying to meet all of these requirements, and I think that part of the mission of NAU is to provide a caring environment to help students succeed. Now, that does not mean that students can get away with anything that they want because they're paying for it, because this is not a situation where you're paying for a degree. What you're paying for is the opportunity to have a seat in the classroom where you can be honestly evaluated and where you can be given the opportunity and access to materials that you may not have otherwise. All right, so there are actions that the instructor can take that will make a difference in whether a student stays in school or not. And as I was saying, helping students get, I've had students who had terrible things happen to them during a class, and we have counseling for people who have experienced some of life's tragic moments, and they've stayed in school. We've had students who needed financial assistance, and we've been able to help them with that. This is really interesting because whether it's on ground or online, you'll see students that really need some help, but the people who really need help oftentimes are the students that do just amazing things to stay in school as well. There are always going to be people who are always going to make excuses and are going to drop out no matter what, but there are some students that will stay with you forever. For instance, back when I was teaching MBA school in Colorado, there was this extraordinary um, young woman who showed up to my classroom. This was an on-ground school. It was the University of Colorado where I was teaching, and she showed up in my classroom and she was disheveled and she was dirty. She never had any paper, and she was always borrowing a pencil and a paper. She didn't have any books, but she always showed up every day. She was there. She was there every day, and she was smart. She was very, very smart, and she was she was such an inspiration to me. One day, the campus police came to me and said, "Do you know this student?" I said, "Yes, of course I know who she is." And she had been sleeping in her car in the parking lot, living in her car, taking a shower in the gym, and literally just trying to stay in school because she had come from such a bad home environment of abuse and neglect, and she was just 18 years old, and she wanted a better life for herself. And so she literally just slept in her car and did everything she could to stay in school. And we were able to help her by getting her financial aid, getting her, a dorm room, getting her, the opportunities that she, needed to stay into school. And she did. She stayed in school and she ultimately graduated. And it was I'm still in awe of this young woman today. She didn't come to me. She didn't ask for help. All she wanted was to be in that classroom. That's all she wanted. And I was glad I was able to help her, with school authorities so that she could stay in school. It was quite something to see. Faculty can create meaningful learning environments, which encourages students to maintain continued progress. And we see that in the curriculum where, we ask you, how does this relate to your working environment? How do you see this in the life that you're currently living? How can you make sense of this theory, in your workday, that sort of thing. And we need that for adults. Adults learn best when we actually give them a reason to use it. For instance, I was once teaching statistical analysis, and one of the gals in the classroom worked at Kohl's department store, and I don't know if there's a Kohl's where you're located, but it's a large department store here in the Kansas City area. And she had a problem on the job that desperately needed some analysis, and we worked together on the statistics for that. And she took it to her boss, and she ran an analysis on. She actually worked in the warehouse at Kohl's. She ran an analysis, and her answers helped increase productivity on the floor. Pretty soon she was being asked to attend management meetings, and by the end of the class she actually got a promotion to manager. And so faculty can really create a meaningful learning environment to encourage students to maintain continued progress. And today I think the last time I talked to her, she had gotten Six Sigma certified. She was pretty serious about this and saw how education could actually make her dream come true and go into management. The goal is not just to keep students in the program, but to improve educational outcomes where students create the knowledge and develop the skill sets while actively participating in the learning process. And as faculty members, we're so lucky to have the opportunity to engage with our students to create these opportunities for them and to be part of that with them. It's very exciting. An instructor may not be able to predict how students will react to their particular method of classroom facilitation. However, their attitude towards students and the conditions they create in the classroom will often determine if students continue in their program. And I think that's true. I think that's very true. Um, most of my students are terrific. I must just be the luckiest faculty member ever in my long career. I think my students have been just terrific. And most of them show such great leadership and such grace under fire, and they're just so wonderful. Now, now that's not to say that every so often you won't, you won't run into a student that no matter what you try to do to reach them, they're going to be angry um, all the time. They're angry at things that happened in other classes, um, you know, years ago, and there's nothing you can do about that except try to reach out to them and help them. But for the most part, um, you know, what I have found is that if you reach out to the student and you show caring concern for them and you want to help them, in their learning, I think you're going to find that you have really dedicated, caring students as well. So, and you'll see that they'll continue in their program. And I actually go to the graduation ceremonies and see my students, which is exciting um, as they graduate. So anyway, uh, the thing is, student retention is not about numbers. It's about the essence of the interactions developed throughout the duration of the class. And I know that I told you that I am a business owner, and I need to tell you that whether I'm a teacher or whether I'm a business owner, um, life itself, everything about life is the essence of the interactions and the relationships that you develop with the people that you work with, that you're lucky enough to teach. Um, these these are really the elements that are going to make you successful as a business person or as a leader in education. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how faculty can improve retention. Um, what's really interesting to me is that students really decide really quickly whether or not they're going to continue enrollment. And I mean, this actually happened to me. The very first day of the very first class, uh, where I was in college as an undergraduate, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I literally I was probably one of the very first non-traditional students ever. I actually was in the military and I got married, and I married a person that I put him through law school, worked, 2 jobs, put him through law school, and he kept saying, once I got out of law school, I'm going to put you through school. So I had a child, had my first son, and I was actually 5 months pregnant when I finally got to go back to school. And I went back to school in a field that was male dominated. I was the only woman in the course, but and oh, I'll tell you, I even had professors who said to me, if it wasn't for you in this class, in this seat, there'd be a man here today. I mean, it was just a horrible environment for me. Pregnant, 27 years old, everybody else is 18, my first class, but I'm telling you, I was so excited to be there and so grateful to be there that nothing, nothing was going to prevent me from graduating. And I remember the first lesson that he talked about, I said to myself, quietly, of course, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to understand this, because he immediately started to talk about forces and vectors. And I thought, I'm not going to make it, but I'm going to stay in here no matter what, because I am thrilled to be here. So I find that to be true with everybody. Every student has that kind of story, and they decide very quickly whether they're going to continue enrollment or not, whether they're going to stay in that school, in that program, or whether they're going to seek another one. And so when you realize that, then you try very hard as a faculty member to, help ease them, help them understand that they can do it. They can make this. They can get that dream. They can do it. And so I think faculty has a big impact on that. So here are some things that I think are important to students from faculty. First, you need to be enthusiastic. You need to try to build connections with students, and let me share something with you. I see absolutely no difference between on-ground and online in the ability to make a connection. Now, I'm going to tell you the one thing that has hampered me a bit is we no longer have live sessions, which I miss. I loved meeting the students and talking with the students and getting to know them. But having said that, I believe me, I get I get a very good sense of the student with emails. I mean, quite honestly, a student can be just as angry with me in an email as they can be in person, and they can be just as nice in an email as they can be in person. So I don't really see any difference between the online and on ground. Learn their names, and you'll see I always call you by your name. Whenever I grade anything, whenever I answer an email, I always will call you by your name. I try to learn about you. I try to connect with students, and you can see in the curriculum, we do try very hard to involve the students in the class learning. You'll see, we ask them in the very first discussion question, what's your goal and objective? What's your fear and apprehensions? We try to explain what the expectations are. If you haven't read the expectation document, please do, because, you know, if your boss told you to do something, you do it, right? Well, NAU tells me to hold you accountable to that expectation document, and I will. So you should read it so that you understand what your expectations are. Always try to be respectful with people and help the students understand the amount of work needed to be successful. And that's in the curriculum where it'll say write a 1,500 word essay, or, we try to be very clear with you what amount of work you need to do to be successful. And we require students to make up work. And we never let go of that. In fact, I was asked to come in and grade another person's incomplete from another class. And and I couldn't grade it till I had all the missing work. And boy, we hunted down the missing work. Said you got to get that in there. Not only do you have to get it in, but you have to get it in correctly. So it isn't like, well, I'll just miss it. No, you're not going to miss it. We're going to make sure that that work is made up so that you can get those points and so you can be successful. Okay, and it shouldn't be us asking you to do that. You should be doing that, or the student should be doing that. But the faculty member, and in this case me, will go out of our way to get that material so that that student can be successful. In this class, everything is going to be by the syllabus. I mean, it's set up that way. It's structured that way. And I just told you that, we try to be flexible and understanding of students with community. Hey, nobody understands that better than me. I was a non-traditional student with 2 kids. Pretty soon I was a non-traditional student, divorced with 2 kids. I mean, I understand how hard that can be to go to school and how much you want this, how much the student wants the degree. I get it. I lived it. Most of us who have our PhDs had to go through something like that to get to the end. So, work with your faculty, but the faculty wants to work with you too. Um, I don't know about socializing with students. I have to tell you, that's in the literature, but I just heard today on the news where a principal who was trying to desperately help their students was asked to resign because they felt that he crossed a line. And I don't know if he crossed a line or not. He was just trying to be helpful. There was no Jerry Sandusky thing involved. But Jerry Sandusky happened, and now I don't know if I would ever socialize with my students. And to tell you the truth, I won't let you like me on Facebook because you know, I just think that today there's that line to be drawn. But help me understand what you think about that. I mean, I can remember being in MBA school and going out for beers with a faculty member, not alone, but in a group. And, I mean, we had the Heidelberg at the University of Missouri where that was the hangout for everybody on campus. So I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I think that the deans used to have, students over to their houses, and I think it's a great idea. I just don't know if it's a great idea in the post-Sandusky era. So I would be really happy to hear about your thoughts on that. Let your students know that you care about them as individuals and as learners, and I agree with that. I agree. Provide as many opportunities for success as possible, but remember, in graduate school, there are no do-overs. There are no, I'm going to edit your work for you first or read it before it's due. There are none of these types of opportunities that were in your undergraduate um, education. So, take the opportunities though that are there. Ask questions. Come to study hall or come to office hours. Take advantage of calling me and talking to me, but not too late. Somebody called me the other night after I was asleep, so don't do that. But really, there shouldn't be any artificial barriers between the faculty member and the student and their learning. Okay, and as I said, we help students learn in the context of the discipline. Attendance matters, and please, people lose points on this. Participation is critical. And if you don't participate in the discussion questions on three different dates and by the dates that you're required to do so, you lose points. And I feel badly when that happens because those are easy points. So don't do that. Attendance matters. And build a sense of community in the classroom. And that's why I I don't want to be the one constantly talking in the discussion questions. I'll be in there, but I think it's important for you guys to build that sense of community in the classroom. You'll get lots of feedback on your assignments, and if you want, we'll make sure that you have academic advice. I work with the academic advisors closely, really closely. In fact, some of them have been my students, and they're terrific people, and I get them involved a lot, an awful lot. And then we also talk and work with other faculty members for things. So there's a lot of things that a faculty member can do to help student retention. And I'm hopeful that you'll share new ideas to help me with this and help other faculty. Help yourself, help each other learn. I'm sure all of you will be faculty at some point if you're not already. All right, so who are our students today? Well, most of them are baby boomers and millennials, okay? And so that means these are all non-traditional students, and the reasons for returning to school, number one that I've seen is they want to sharpen the skills on the job. I don't see a lot of people just coming to school for pleasure. I do see a lot of students who come back to make more money, to increase opportunities for promotion. I see a lot of soldiers especially wanting to complete a degree after they've finished a stellar career in the military. By the way, I'm a veteran, and I see them wanting to complete a degree because they want to set an example for their children. So I see a lot of reasons. And I'd be interested in hearing why you came back to school. And there are a lot of people who are born on the cusp of two generations, and many people do not fit their generational type. Um, you know, the important thing is to remember it's just that you need to provide a environment in which there is acceptance of diversity and respect for every individual. You have to listen carefully to students, dismissing their ideas. Add to what they say to make them feel that their ideas and opinions are worthwhile. We have a terrific person at NAU who's in charge of curriculum. He's just terrific. And he insists that instructional techniques and assignments are to be built into every course that appeal to a wide range of learning styles and backgrounds and skill levels. And he's very good about being creative and designing lessons and activities and assignments, and he's terrific. And um, you'll see this as you go through your program. Okay. All right. So let's just talk a little bit about the um, baby boomer. The baby boomer generation is reaching retirement, and educators predict an increased number of older adult students in higher education. Today, adults 65 and older make up 13% of the U.S. population, but by 2030, 18% of Americans will be 65 or older. And what's interesting to me is that they're going back to school. And what's really interesting to me is retirement. Um, People aren't retiring anymore in the way that you think. Um, let's see. And I do want to talk briefly about the changing face of retirement. The literature says that baby boomers will significantly change how society understands retirement. I agree. Actually, I hear, especially for women, women say that they will not give up a paycheck and they, excuse me, will not go into retirement. More men are willing to do that than women. Um, what we see is as the baby boomer generation begins retiring, they just actually have a shift in what it means to retire and what people are choosing to do with their time. So instead of completely retiring, they want to try a new career, they want to start a new business, they want to get back to their community. And one of the reasons why this is possible is because we have a longer lifespan today than we did before. It isn't that we're just growing older, it's that we're living longer and we're having a good life. And so people are returning to education for personal interests or, even career retraining. So this idea of lifelong learning really is being embraced by the baby boomers. A lot of them are building new careers. They're, they're choosing to stay or they're being forced to stay in the workplace longer. But what we're also seeing is that a lot of them are being outsourced. A lot of them are being, you know, fired. And in fact, I have a good friend who worked for Hallmark for 25 years. She only had one job in her whole life and she loved it. And she got to the point where she was one of their best photographers. And they said, look, we're firing you. We're letting you go. Even though we love you, we're letting you go because we can get two photographers for the same price as one. And really they did because they were able, today salaries are really, really decreasing. Okay, let's see. Um, yeah, what a lot of people are saying is that to be competitive, they have to go to school and get a degree, and it doesn't matter what age. And also a lot of times people are getting degrees just because they want to, as I said, start their own business or even help mentor new people. And so they need a degree to help mentor them. It's interesting. Also, as we're talking about baby boomers and now as we're talking about millenniums, there, there's definite characteristics of both, but what I want you to know is, again, that, you can't pigeonhole people, based on, are you Generation Y, are you millennial, are you baby boomer, so, but approximately 30% of the American population is in that age range, and the most diverse generation in our history, 34%, are non-white or Latino. In just a few years, actually white, non-Hispanic will be in the minority. So what are the characteristics of a millennial? Well, they like to identify with their parents' values. They like technology. In fact, what's interesting to me is if you survey them, and I may have told you this already, but if you survey millennials, they'll tell you that the most earth-shaking kind of event that defined their generation um, was the internet, which is interesting because there were so many other things that happened at the same time. And what they say is the internet is what defined their generation. 1 in 5 have an immigrant parent. They love group activities. They grew up in economic prosperity. They're a protected group. They're indulged by their parents. Watch this seriously, because I've even been in corporations where parents will ask to come on an interview with their child and negotiate their salary, believe it or not. They're very indulged by their parents. I've seen a lot of parents come to me as a faculty member and ask me to please pass, little Johnny or little Sue, when I haven't even seen little Johnny or Sue in the classroom, and the parent will come and lobby on their behalf, which, with FERPA in place, you can't really talk to the parent, but what's interesting is you'll see that as a faculty member. Also they like to be consulted on decisions. They expect to excel. And, I see that a lot with students today. You'll say, what do you want? And they say, I want an A, but they don't want to work for it. What they want is an A, and they just want you to give them an A, but they don't want to work for it. So I see that. I hear that a lot. Constant social contact. I see people, I still teach on ground, and it's interesting because now there's a lot of computers in the classroom, and what's really interesting is you think they're taking notes, but actually they're on Facebook the whole time. And instead of asking them to go to get a scholarly journal, everything is just Googled. Wikipedia it's tough to get them to stop using Wikipedia, and they're intellectually naive. So, the question I have for you is, what do you see as the major difference between baby boomers and millennials? And what challenges, because of these differences, do you see in retention? So, here are some questions to consider, and I'd be interested in hearing what you think. How can faculty improve retention without sacrificing standards? And that's a tough one. That's a tough one, because everybody loves the professor who just gives out the A, who really doesn't grade their papers, doesn't really read them, just everybody easy A. And it's easy on the faculty member and it's easy on the student. Hey, I got an A. I can't tell you the number of students who've gotten to my class, and I'll say, hey, you need to work on APA, and I'll hear, well, I never had another faculty member ever tell me about that. And it's hard on faculty when, there's, other faculty just say, oh, we'll just give a easy grade, easy A on that. So how as a faculty, improve retention and uphold standards? Okay, what is the relationship between meaningful coursework and retention? So what is meaningful coursework? How do you front load assistance in a semester? How do you make retention efforts more intrusive? And the connection between the student retention and job security, how do you make that? How do retention efforts improve student evaluations? And have you thought, what about creating an endowed chair in your department to support retention? That would be interesting. So another question is, what resources are needed in order to implement retention improvement plans, and are those implementation plans different for online universities and on-ground universities? So it's interesting, isn't it? Because the student body demographics are different on online universities and on-ground universities. I'll be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. So remember, I am always here to assist you. Please ask lots of questions. If you have any questions, contact me. I know you're doing very well, and so with that, I'll see you online. Take care.